Shalom, 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 Yasha Allah. This your boy, Brother Shamwa Allah, back at you with another quick edifying video. Today's lesson is going to be called The Nations Declare Its Independence from Babylon. The nations declare its independence from Babylon. All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Halal, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. That's all praises to the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahawah, and his only begotten Son's name, who you ignorantly call Jesus, whose name is Yahawashi. All right, and the Holy Spirit, which is the Rawchaa Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone who have ruled well through the Spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days, and has pushed this gospel and this truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom. Another mighty shalom to all you Akim out there laboring on the highways and on the hedges and on the unicorn, which is this internet, pushing this 100% doctrine, this 100% truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom to you all as well. All right, like I said, today's lesson is going to be called The Nation Declares Its Independence from Babylon. All right. And just came across this article from The Guardian. It says, this 4th of July, the world declares its independence from America. Okay. It says this year, like every other year, Americans will celebrate Independence Day with flag waving and parades and fireworks. The political system, the flag, and in the parades and fireworks are supposed to represent is in tatters. It says, but everybody likes a party. It was 249 years ago when Babylon separated from the British Empire. Over the past year, it has separated from the world it built over those 249 years. It says from basic sanity to decency as well. It says for Babylonians, the madness gripping their country is a catastrophe. It says for non-Americans, it is an accidental revolution. It says this Independence Day, the world is declaring its independence from Babylon. It says, as the United States retreats from the world, it is reshaping the lives of its former trading partners and allies. It says, leaving huge holes in its wake. For Canada, where I live, the sudden absence of the responsible United States has been more shocking and more terrifying than for other countries. It says Babylonians are our friends and neighbors, often our family. We have been at peace with them for 200 years. It says integrating with their security apparatuses and markets. Now they are explicitly planning to weaken U.S. To weaken us economically in order to annex us. It says the Canadian strategy undertaken with vigor by the newly elected government of Mark Carney has been clear in spirit, at least a polite go F yourself after you've told America to F off. It says, though the real work starts, it says you have to figure out how to live without them. Carney has already signed major pieces of legislation to lower trade barriers inside the country, to create new trading partners, and to cement security arrangements with the European Union. All right. It's a nice one like that. It says, but those who are only the obvious beginnings. It says, since Nero inauguration, I have been working on Gloves Off. It says an audio series trying to figure out how Canada can navigate post-American world. All right. It says, I've been shocked by how much needs to be done. Canada is like a beautiful mansion with huge chunks of foundation missing. It says we don't even have our own secret service just an internal security apparatus. Our military would be comically unprepared for an American annexation. It says large-scale changes to national life, becoming a nuclear power, undertaking a whole society defense. It says may be required to survive a neighbor who is backsliding into authoritism every week. It says under protection of Babylon, under the assumption that its economy was globally dominant, Canada has never had to ask itself hard questions. Now they're facing a pop quiz with terrifying consequences. The decline of Babylon leaves psychological gap too. It says Babylon, for all its problems, was aspirational. It was easy to poke holes in its claims to explanationalism, but generally served millions of people, myself definitely included, as a beacon of freedom and openness. But I keep thinking of that line from No Country for Old Men just before Anton Chigurh kills Carson Wells in a hotel. It says that the rules you followed brought you to this, or what use was the rule? Of what use was the rule? So like it says its founders knew America's vulnerabilities from inception. Washington predicted almost exactly the effects of pariatismship the country it's undergoing today. It says the alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dispensation. It says which is different ages and countries has perpetuated the most horrid enormities. It says is itself a frightful despotism. He wrote in his farewell address, it says, but this leads at length to the more formal and permanent despotism. It says Abraham Lincoln saw it all coming. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. A nation of freemen, we must live through all time or die by. It says it's tackier than anyone imagined, but it's been predicted since 1776. Right, I like that. Right, Abraham C. So the comment said, if our destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. That's crazy. Salakia, I read a little bit. I didn't read the whole thing, right? But you see it, right? This place is going down. It says one of the great ironies of history is that the triumph of MAGA has led to the priismal destruction of everything that once made Babylon great. And it says, and on every level, its power derived from a reliable trade network with logistical chains that were wonders of the world, combined with huge alliance network and the greatest scientific and technological institutes in the world, right? So you see, by trade, right? This is all talked about. Revelation 18, all right? You had the EU, right? Revelation 17, and the technological institutes in the world, okay? Pushing towards that MOTB, right? You got Neuralink. It says it's systematically destroying all of those strengths far more thoroughly than any enemy could. Okay? It says America is turning away from itself, and the rest of the world must follow. It says the new independence requires frankness and brutality. There is no such thing as a deal with Babylon anymore. Canada and Mexico made one with Nero in 2018. He broke it at first possible opportunity. The national word is worthless. It says they understand only force and money, and increasingly not even those. It says their military actions are more or less random, half considered, about as deep and significant as a social media rage post. It says they instantly forget who helped or hurt them. All those Afghans who saved American lives a decade ago have lived to regret it. It says being deported just for spectacle of it all. It says back to the torturers. There is exactly no security in being their ally. It says if the American government declares war on something, poverty, drugs, Islamic terrorism, it says anti-democratic governments, you can be quite sure that whatever they're opposed to were much by the strong, so like it's stronger by the end of fighting. It says U.S. scholars of fascism are fleeing to Toronto, and then the city has become a kind of lens through which to see the American collapse. Canada sees what America is becoming. Travel from Canada to Babylon is down 45% year over year, which is partly a political statement by way of boycott, but it's also a demonstration of common sense. Babylon has made it perfectly clear that foreigners are unwelcome and the subject to violence with total impunity. It says, but the simplest way to explain the need to step away from Egypt is the most basic. No problem the world faces has an answer that the world faces. It says has a that can be found, Salakia, in Egypt. It says not politically, not economically, not socially, not culturally. It is clear that we have to start looking for answers to the world's problems elsewhere, in ourselves and in others. There is a celebration of independence this Independence Day, and it is real. It's just for countries other than Babylon. It says the lesson that Egyptians once taught the British, they are teaching the rest of the world. There are no necessary nations. It says there are no exceptional countries. There are no permanent global orders. There's just more history trying to survive and stay yourselves it. Okay? Wow, I like that. This is a good little thing, right? It's basically just talking about how, these nations, are turning their back. Okay? Turning their back on Babylon, right? AKA Egypt, AKA Sodom in Egypt, right? Spiritual Sodom in Egypt, right? America. This place is going down, right? And there's a couple things, that they talked about. Where is it? Here it says, how this place, right here it says, Carney has already signed major pieces of legislation to lower trade barriers inside the country to create new trading partners and to cement security arrangements with the European Union. Okay, because Babylon is being hated by all. All right, and this is all prophecy. Okay, so let's get a couple of scriptures. Right, I'm not gonna make this too long, but I saw this article. I was like, yeah, I need to do this one. But this is beautiful. Right, this is definitely beautiful. All right. And it started off by saying, it's his 249th year. All right. And they said this is the year that the nations, right, are freeing themselves, freeing themselves from Babylon. Okay. Let's go to Jeremiah 28, start at verse number 7. It says, nevertheless, hear thou now this word that I speak in the ears and in the ears of all the people. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence. All right. And they were saying, uh, people are starting to realize that, hey, this great American place is just like all the other nations that have come, all these other great mighty kingdoms, right? They all come to an end. Okay, and we see it right now. All right, and people are experiencing it. Okay, let's go to the book of Isaiah, right? Isaiah 47, verse number 1, right? The judgment on Babylon. It says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate." Okay? And you have your, allies like Canada and Mexico, right? Who, looking up to this place, and they felt secure. And now they don't see that, right? You see that America or Babylon has turned its back on its allies. And now you see in this article, guess what? These nations are turning their back on Babylon. Okay? So it says, thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. It says, take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. It says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen, and I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. Okay? So Babylon, man, their great glory is coming to an end. All right. No more called tender and delicate, right? What is that? Jeremiah 51. And what is it? Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse number 7. It says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in Yahawah's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore, the nations are mad. All right. And that's what they're talking about, right? How this place, utilized its, breaking free from Britain, right? To do what? And now here they are, being hated. Okay. So we see that going on. All right. Let me jump up to verse 6, right? Because you see that it talks about how the visitation, the travel from Canadians to Babylon has decreased almost 45%. Right? It says, flee out of the midst of Babylon. Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 6. Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity. For this is the time of Yahawah's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. Okay? And this place, is ultimately, getting ready to be judged. Okay? Let's see. Let's jump down, right? Because this place is getting set up, right? These other nations are hating this place, okay? And the Lord is doing it. The Lord is putting the spirit upon these nations, all right? The Lord is putting the spirit upon Babylon, all right, to do these things, right? So that these prophecies can be fulfilled, okay? Let's jump to Revelation, okay? Because they talked about the EU, all right? Revelation chapter 17 and verse number 16, right? And the 10 horns, that's the EU, okay? Revelation chapter 17 and verse 16, it says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. Who is the whore? America, aka Babylon, okay? It says, in the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. All right, talking about those nuclear warheads. All right, those nuclear weapons. All right, and you see Canada, pairing up, and trying to get their security and their things with what? With the EU. Okay, right? This is all falling into plan, right? They're looking for other ways for trading. Okay. Let's go to that real quick. Let's see. Because this place ultimately is going to be burnt. All right. This is Revelation, right? So Revelation chapter 17. It says the EU, right, and then you have the other nations, right, starting with Russia, okay, or Gog of Magog, okay, and their allies, right. They're going to burn this whore, okay, with fire, with thermonuclear fire, all right, with these ICBM missiles, okay. Revelation chapter 18, verse 16, it says, and it's saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, okay? Because ultimately this place is going to be judged, all right? And this place is going to be on fire from one coast to the other coast, okay? And you see Mexico and you see Canada separating themselves from this place, all right? You know, they don't get that, you know, this place is going to get that judgment, and this is going to become the lake of fire, all right, from all the ICBM missiles that are going to be shot on this place, the warheads, okay. I believe it said 200 million, okay. It says, for in 1 hour is so great riches come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in the ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. Okay, you know those, and you see in the article it talks about how Canada is, you know, renegotiating trading things, okay, because ultimately, you know, they're right there, but right, we see it, all right, and we see these prophecies, you know, unfolded until ultimate, and remember, this is the 249th year, okay, and we know that, you know, the average of a kingdom is 250 years, right? And then the title of the thing was this 4th of July, you know, the nations or the world is gaining their independence from America, all right, from Babylon, all right. Why? Because they're trying to separate themselves, okay. Ultimately, the Lord is doing this, all right, because he's going to bring great judgment upon this place, all right. He's going to bring great judgment upon Babylon, all right. Let me see. Let's go to back to Jeremiah. I know there was a few more that I wanted to go through, but just for time's sake, let's see. Matter of fact, let's go to Jeremiah 50, right? This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 3. It says, for out of the north there cometh up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall depart, both man and beast. All right. Let me jump down. Here we go. Verse 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, right, America, an assembly of great nations from the north country, right? And starting with, Russia, okay? With Russia, right? And their allies. And as you see, you know, the rest of these nations are going to come up against this place, okay? This place is, you know, act like, it's untouchable, right? When you read Revelation 18, when you read up a little bit, it talks about, we shall see no death, right? But in one day, this place is going to see death, mourning, the whole nine. All right, fire. Okay, so it says, "For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows, right, those ICBM missiles, all right, intercontinental ballistic missiles, shall be as of a mighty expert men. None shall return in vain." Okay, so those missiles that they're running around trying to shoot down Persia or Iran, for trying to build, right? Those are going to be shot at Babylon, okay, and none are going to miss, okay, and they're going to have those nuclear warhead capabilities, all right, to utterly destroy this place, all right. It says, because, verse 11, it says, "Because ye were glad, because ye rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage, because ye are grown as fat as the heifer at grass, and bellow as bulls, your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed." It says, "Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness and a dry land and a desert." It says, "Because of the wrath of Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Everyone that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues." All right. And remember, this place got their independence from who? From Britain. All right. Britain was their mother. It says, "Your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed." Okay. And these nations, right? The EU, all right, and the rest of these nations that are going to shoot at this place. Okay. It says, "Because of the wrath of Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she have sinned against Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi." So ultimately, this is coming from Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi. Okay? This judgment is coming, and there's nothing that Babylon can do. Okay? And we see it being played out. We see it, like I say, we're living right in these times. All right? Where you see, right? And you see these people are fleeing, all right? They're fleeing to Canada. People are not coming to this place, all right? This place is trying to separate itself. And guess what? The Lord is going to ultimately finish this place, okay? So in the day that they celebrate their independence, right? The article says this is the same day that the world declares its independence from Babylon. All right, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, man. Call Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi. All right, so I just saw this, right? And at this day, where they celebrate, and it's crazy. Like, I don't really hear the firecrackers and the things like how it normally does. Right, it's been kind of quiet over here, right? But hey, it's about to heat up very soon. Remember, a kingdom usually lasts 250 years, right? And this is that last little hurrah, all right? That celebration, all right? Lord's will, all right? Lord's will, the MOTB comes this year, right? And we're out of here, all right? So, we continue to prophesy, all right? And we see these things taking place, okay? Right in front of our eyes. All right, so I just want to do this quick lesson. Lord's will, this was edifying. Right, with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Call Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. Peace and blessings to the elect of the 12 tribes scattered abroad. A mighty shalom to the 144,000 men. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who have ruled well to the spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days. Right? Another mighty shalom to the rest of the elect out there. Stay diligent, stay focused, keep praying for one another. All right? And ultimately, hey, these nations will declare their independence from Babylon. Okay? And it's gonna be by these arrows, all right, by the waster, all right, and through the power and spirit of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, or Qadash. All right. With that, I say a ball, shalom.